Welcome back. I'm Westing Tyler, and this is another game design update for my video games that I'm working on and my side projects. Yeah, that's so cool. Let's go over what we talked about again. And the time works, the radio works, the TV works. Where's the TV? Boop, there's a TV. Works. I showed the scripting and OpenAI Codex stuff, which is really cool. Showed the my all my interaction spots, sewer lids, liquid kegs that hold liquids, a sink, a coffee maker, seeing their different categories, the TV guide that I'm working on to fill out the categories, and I went over the AOCT, which is part of my game design philosophy. I went over like the corn forest, like the developing areas using AI imagery and then character imagery using Stable Diffusion as well. Yeah, and then I went over, like some changes to my website, adding some project areas uh, and talking about the systems in my games, and then where I started getting, the knowledge of the public domain music that I could use, and then yeah, public domain day happens every year, and it's a good place to get some of the music. As you can see on this AI generated title card that I have, minus the title itself, I made that. It's just blocked out the actual title. This one's focusing on NotSSgame, but these ideas that we're talking about can apply to a lot of game design stuff and a lot of my side projects as well. As you can see here, we have this title screen in OBS, and then I have this one for Project Ultra Deep. Then I have this one for Age of Singularity. Project Ultra Deep is my attempt to recreate Waterdeep and the Undermountain underneath the giant mega dungeon underneath it. I have another video about that. I might link that here or somewhere if that's a thing. But it's pretty cool. Dungeons and Dragons, Forgotten Realms, and that's one of my side projects. And then another one is Age of Singularity, which is my Ultima 6 world reimagining project. And then my core project, which is NotSSgame, NotSS, is like everything is building toward that. I'm trying to build systems and scripting and assets, 3D models and textures and music and audio libraries and stuff of my own creation to to build toward a system that can get as close to a holodeck style VR, not necessarily VR. I don't know why I said that because I'm nervous and silly. But like an immersive experience. And I'm going to talk about several things today. Okay, we're going to go over the current thing that I'm working on with Knots, which is a Unity scripting stuff and some interactable objects that I'm making. In an effort to get more toward an immersive experience. And we're going to talk a little bit later about the AOCT, which is my part of my core of my game design philosophy. And yeah, so that's going to be cool. And I'm going to show you some of the scripting that I'm using because I'm using AI to do scripting now. Because I'm not a coder, but now I am because of AI. Because there's this thing called, I think it's called OpenAI Codex, and it's like $10 a month. Totally worth it. It's the only thing better than like Playmaker visual scripting, just because it's faster to iterate and it's so cool. But now I'm an official, real C# coder because of this tool that allows me to do it. AI is just so handy. And I'm gonna show some of the character designs that I'm working on using Stable Diffusion, which I've downloaded for free onto my computer, and which I can just use to just generate as much AI art as I want forever. It's amazing because it's open source and awesome. Look into Stable Diffusion because it's like Dolly 2 is cool, Midjourney is pretty great, but Stable Diffusion being free and it's just on my computer, that's you can't beat that. That's really cool. I have to have a really good video card. I have an RTX 2060 Super, which means I can generate things that are about 512 resolution by 512, which is just fine for getting started. So we're going to talk about that stuff. I'm going to show some areas and characters from that. As far as, and I'll show a couple of web pages that help talking about public domain, stuff about my website, and stuff about some cool music, public domain music resources and stuff. So I guess we'll just get started. I'll switch over now to this. Is this going to work? That works. Okay, so this is what I'm working on right now. And when I talk about an immersive holodeck style experience, again, like VR is really cool, but I misspoke because I'm not just focusing on VR. In fact, right now I'm putting VR to the side and working on that later, just because it's a lot of extra stuff to have to deal with when I'm trying to get really basic systems like this in place. So for the past week or so, I've been working on my interactable objects database, which is just a part of building out the world in terms of media generation, in terms of like music, movies, TVs, all this stuff. So here's a radio, okay, that I made. I modeled this in Blender, okay, and check it out. Okay, so if I do this and I press play, and I've been scripting it. I've been making scripts using C Sharp, which is really cool because those are scripts I own now that I created. Okay, so the first thing you can see right off the bat is that there's an error in the console. That means there's a problem with the script. This kind of stuff used to scare the crap out of me because it would mean I'd have to stop using that script or like go find a forum somewhere and write and hope someone can answer the question. Now I just go fix it, and I'll take a look at that in a minute. Because I'm able to use Visual Studio Code and which is the free or open source version of Visual Studio. And the OpenAI Codex stuff. So I can just go fix this, and I'm starting to understand these things, which is really, really cool. So I'm not at the mercy of other people as much as I used to be. Because yeah, like a null reference exception, object reference not set to instance of an object. That means that like I have a variable, like which is a box, you know, for like a piece of information in a script, and it's trying to ask that thing something, but that thing is null. It's not set to anything. So it's like looking in a box and saying, hey, game object, what do you look like? And there's nothing in it. So like it's responding back like nothing. So the person asking, the script asking is like, it does not compute. That's a null reference exception. So I need to go and make sure that it checks to see if that's null or not. And if it is, just ignore it and don't ask it anything. Because you can't ask a null, like just a non-existent thing, something, you know. But I understand that now. I didn't understand that a week ago. And now I'm learning this stuff. And if I could do it, you could do it, because I don't know none of this stuff. All right, so I'm going to clear that for now, because it's not really necessary. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is this clock on the left side. I have time in my game, which is really cool. Time is important because it determines the schedules of NPCs and everything, just like Ultima 6, my favorite game of all time, and it's kind of like one of the big beacons for my game design philosophy. It's like back in Origin Systems, Lord British 1990, a DOS game, Ultima 6, The False Prophet. You can get it on goodoldgames.com. But I've heard Ultima 7 is better, but I haven't actually played that one yet. But I love Ultima 6. All the NPCs have schedules. They wake up, they chill, they go to work, they get off work and go to the tavern, they come home, they go to sleep, and like that's like the core of how a stealth system would operate. The baseline of that requires that, which is why it's frustrating to me that Metal Gear Solid, even when it got to the pinnacle of its design, with Ground Zeroes, I'm not a huge fan of Phantom Pain. I think it's really bloated and yet somehow unfinished, which is frustrates me. But Ground Zeroes is a perfect Metal Gear Solid experience. You know, even though it's short and simple. But even then, they didn't have like this. They had shifts at scheduled points where the characters, the soldiers, would like swap out with other soldiers, and then they would like have different patrols, and that's cool. But we needed to have them also like get off their shift and like go to the cantina, you know, and like get some food, and then go to the showers. Even if we blur it out or don't see them actually showering or something, you know, there are funny Japanese ways you could handle that, Kojima ways you could do that. Um, you know, but then like sleeping in their bunks and stuff, and these affect your strategy, and that's just for stealth. But in terms of any game, I really think it can benefit from this kind of stuff, having time be a functional thing. You have AM, you have PM, you have minutes, days, you have seconds, you have hours. And in my game, NotSSgame, it's about time flow. It's like a Majora's Mask style time loop situation, and you can control the flow of time to basically shape your own difficulty and challenge level, you know, kind of thing. I think the more you can take options and just make them gameplay components, and the player can like kind of cook that to taste, you know, it's like I want some of this, I want some of that, you know, but do it in the game. I think that's a really cool way to put options into a game without it just feeling like you're just ticking a bunch of boxes, you know, and if you and again, the more you can immerse the player without them realizing that they're like crafting their own difficulty level, the better. And time is a great way to do that. But it also just makes the world more immersive because you can do cool stuff. So if I look over here, I got like a time progression little doodle game object, and I have a script. Where's that? Yeah, it's a script. I made the script, um, and I can show it in a minute. Um, but yeah, it's cool as crap, and and that affects all of the media players in the game. One of the things that I'm getting into, once you have time and you have space, which is the landscape of my world, which exists already, is a 7 kilometer by 7 kilometer area, then you talk about getting into things that use that stuff. And that's how you start to build a breathing world, in my opinion. So you can see in the play mode window here, you can see the time is passing. I don't have it hooked into the radio yet, but I do have it hooked into the TV, and I'll show that in a second. So the radio, check this crap out. So you got the radio. It's like an old 1920s style radio. So I added some noise in. Okay. And so it's just noise because there's nothing on this channel, this AM channel, 520. But what you don't realize is that there's music playing right now. It just happens to be on another frequency. So if we switch over, now we're listening to music. And there are 10 channels on AM and 10 on FM. And I'm thinking about having the FM be a custom radio station thing that loads in dynamically from your streaming assets folder, which means players could drop their own music into the radio, into that folder, and then play it in game. There's no reason you can't do that. And it's so easy to do now that I know how to script, which is really cool. So this is like music. It's public domain, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Public domain music is awesome because it's public domain. But there are no copyright issues because it's old enough that so you can use it for anything, and it's really cool. This is normally not the type of music that I like to listen to, but I really appreciate it now, and it's very chill. And this will factor into the AOCT, my game design philosophy about immersion that I'll talk about in a little bit too. It's just having it in the background adds more than just the piece of media itself. You know, you have soundscapes and stuff. Now it's going over to a different song. Yeah, it's so cool. Yeah, it's really cool. And I'll talk about public domain and like public domain day, which we have each year now. See it switching to AM and FM. Anyway, so that works, and you can turn it off. And I talk about how I'm not developing VR right now. And for the same reason, for the scripting area, I don't even have a character in place right now. You know, I'm just getting the machinery working for these different interactable objects. So here's the radio, and so that works. It works. Now I just got to fill out the channels with public domain music or copyright-free music, and then it's just there in the background, something you can interact with. And a lot of players are never ever even going to bother to interact with, let alone sit down and listen to. But you can, because of my game design philosophy of immersion before gameplay. Like, you have to make a world first and make it feel real and let me relax in it and tour in it. Tourism is the T on AOCT. Before you can expect me to start care about saving it. Like it, you know, it's like the real world I care about saving. I live here, and I'm very familiar with the people, and I care about the people in the real world. But your video game world, your story world, you can't, for me, you can't just say, go save the world. It's like, why? I don't even want to be in this world because I can't sit down, you know? So why would I care about saving it? Of course, not a lot of games do this AOCT philosophy that I'm talking about, like, which is just about immersion. So it's like, I have to kind of, you know, I can't expect every game to have that level of immersion. But I'm going to. Like, and this is like a baseline. It's like the radio, the TV, magazines, books. I've been working on a video store with VHS tapes. I'll pull that up in my blend file in a minute because I have hundreds of VHS boxes. But there's the radio, so that's cool. And I'll turn that off now. Where's the radio? I'll turn that off. And I'm gonna turn on the TV. Where's the TV? There it is. Okay. So here's the TV. And I'm going for a 1980s style aesthetic, kind of an analog retro stuff for everything, because that's kind of the time period my games sit in. So here's the TV. It doesn't have sound yet. But you might notice that the frame on the TV changes every time a minute changes because this is hooked into time. There's an actual 6 a.m. to midnight broadcasting day. And there are, what, 13 or 14 channels starting. You have channel 0 all the way up to 13. And I'll just show that. There's 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 9, 6. And this is only VHF. I have the UHF knob for ultra high frequency stuff where you can go up to like channel 56 or 80 or whatever stuff. Too much content right now. I already have to fill out, what is it, like 1,440 minutes worth of content. But again, like, it's not going to be really videos at this stage, but I would eventually like to do that. Right now, it's just imagery, as you can see. And this is really compressed, kind of garbledy stuff, because I was trying to find the most efficient way to include this imagery. This is all AI-generated imagery, by the way, of like 1980s TV shows. And every channel's the same. But so it ended up being like an like an MP4 file, and I'm still trying to get the compression right because the video file looks much nicer than this, but it also plays like and it's done. It's like 9 seconds because it's like 30 frames a second, and what I'm gonna have is 30 frames per half hour, so basically 1 frame a minute, starting out, and there's gonna be some separate background audio that plays for each TV show, and I'm looking into ways to generate the audio for using AI too, but I haven't found a really optimal way to do that yet. So yeah, 1980s TV shows of all different genres. I already have a broadcast schedule that I've worked out. I forgot to pull that up. It's somewhere around here. All right, here it is. So this is before I expanded it to 13 channels. This is back when it was 4. This is before AI like generated imagery was a thing. So like just filling this out would have driven me nuts. But this is a basic idea. I'm considering day parting and things like that. These are broadcasting terms in terms of like who's watching at what time. 6 a.m. is like drive time. I guess this is not the radio, so I don't know why that people aren't watching a lot of TVs in the car during drive time. But you have the time when the little kids get up. You have the time when like the housewives are cleaning. You have a time when the kids get home from school. Then you have the evening stuff, like the prime time stuff. Like this is what it would have been like 1980s style, broadcasting stuff. And a lot of this still is kind of true, but it's like that was the kind of their mentality. Not that I'm saying like that I socially ascribe to any particular regimented stuff like that. But yeah, so like I'm taking all the things that I loved when I was a kid and all the things I would feel appropriate to fill out because this is Halloween. So what would be on TV during Halloween, and the radio as well. So this is just kind of an idea. You have the time and then you go all the way up. But I have a better, more full one now than this, which I could pull up. All right, here it is. So this is the TV guide version 2. So this you can see like we're kind of going up from channel 2 to channel 13. I think channel like 0 is going to be noise with some spooky stuff that happens if you're watching at the right time, or something like that. But the design idea for how this is going to work is, so each one of these 30-minute blocks is going to be starting out. It's going to be 30 images that just kind of play one after another. But eventually I want to replace it with real content, but that's a really tall order because considering it's, 1,440 minutes in a day. I don't know if that counts midnight to 6 a.m., which things are going to be mostly static and have the sign off and everything. But again, the goal is to recreate this world, the world of like 1989, 1991, so people can kind of experience that if they want to. But again, this is not my game. This is a little piece of the world of my game. So filling that out, I think, is going to add a lot of cool stuff. Because I love in The Sims, you can see the little TVs that play, or in Harvest Moon, like checking the Weather Channel and stuff. I just love these little immersion things. So that's one of the things I'm working on. Now back to this, you can see how time affects this. If I go to the time progression thing, I can change the time scale to, let's say, 3. Well, 3 won't show you anything. If I can go to 0.03. See, you can see the clock going up so fast that it actually can't update the video player fast enough. That's a Unity thing or whatever. So I'll have to figure out what is the right amount of time to let people just pass. But you can also do negative 0.3, and now the time is going backwards, which is cool. And it's going really fast though. So if I go like, let's say 0.8, still going really fast. Negative 1, why is it? There's still some bugs to work out. What if I just go to 1? Oh, okay. Oh, negative time scale, because I scripted in negative, so I just hit negative, and that'll go make it go backwards. That's how you do it. Okay. Yeah, cool. Um, so you can have different time scales, just like in Majora's Mask, where you can control the flow of time. But here you also can press 60, or just press 1, and it hit real time scale. And now it's real time. So in a minute, 355 is going to be 356. And then a minute later, it's going to be 357. So Majora's Mask is famous for being stressful because of the time limit. There's a time limit in my game too, but I also want my game to be a free open world adventure, kind of like Breath of the Wild kind of thing. And those things kind of, in my view, clash just a little bit because like in terms of the feelings you're trying to give the player, like I want the player to feel like, I'm free, I can do whatever I want and immerse myself in the world and take my time. But then you have this time limit because in my game, before midnight, you got to get done what you got to get done. So like that's, you can't relax if you have a deadline like that unless you let people play it in real time. So like, okay, if you and you can choose that. You can shape that with your magic or whatever. So you can choose to play it things in real time and then not have that much of a stressor about midnight coming around because you got, let's say the game starts at 2:30 p.m. and you can change that range, and it ends at midnight. And of course you can loop. So like just so if it's real time, like let's say it starts at 3 p.m. since I'm terrible at math, 3 p.m. to 12, that's 9 hours. That's a chill game experience. All of a sudden you have the time limit. It's still there a little bit in the back of your mind, but I hope that it makes that stressful experience of the time limit nullifiable if the player wants, enough to be able to immerse themselves in the experience. And I'm still experimenting with that. There may be modes or something where the time limit doesn't exist at all. And there is a certain thing where you can just cause the time to auto reset back before midnight, so you don't really have to stress about things. And there are ways to save progress. In like dungeons and stuff, like with save rooms, so that like even if things get reset, you still save your progress in that area. Like the Resident Evil typewriters is kind of what I'm going for there. So you can, so that way like you can save a dungeon's progress, and so there are ways around all of the stress of a time loop, while still having all the cool aspects of it, like with the clockwork city and everything. So that's kind of what we're going for, and that's if yeah the real time. Let's go back to normal game time, which is a minute a second. And again, this is all going to be experimented with to figure out what feels right and what increments feel right. Um, but yeah, and so the TV's going to change. And if it's 4:13 now, let's say I go turn the TV back on, now it's showing what plays at 4:20, whatever. Um, uh, so that's what I've been doing is the scripting stuff. So let's show the scripting stuff. Um, boop. So this is in high contrast mode. Um, I I don't know if I like that. It's just the way how bright everything is and dark everything is. But this is Visual Studio Code, which is free and open source. I think the point I love free and open source stuff. Blender is one. This is one. Stable Diffusion is one. Because then it's actually going to get updated past the point that it's profitable. You know what I'm saying? Whereas corporate products, like as soon as like live service games, for example, it's like as soon as the company decides they're not making exactly as much money as they want, oh, screw that. You go buy a new one. And it's like, no, it's open source, man. It's awesome because then it's free and everybody can contribute and it's awesome. So here's the radio database radio reels. So if I go back here and I start this baby back up and I get that error back, I can show you a little bit of how I would check for that bug issue. Hopefully it won't take too long to start it back up. And this is like stuff I wouldn't have been able to do before the AI tools that exist now. So, oh no, oh my gosh, I'm having a panic attack. There's an error, and I don't know how to code. So I have to like go to the Playmaker forums and like ask them and hope I understand what the issue is and how to fix it. Or oh my gosh, this asset, I have to email the guy who made the asset on the asset store and hope they exist still. Um, oh no. Or since I wrote this script, so it says a null reference exception at the assets resources in script database, the radio reels. All right, so radio reels, database radio reels. Is that it, right? Database radio reels. That's the script. And what line? C sharp 67. All right, so Control G 67. There's the line where the error is. All right, so it's saying that there's a null reference exception. So I'm trying to do something with this text, okay? But it's saying that this string doesn't exist or something. So I would have to go through and, bug test that. And that could take obnoxious hours. I'm not going to do that live because I wouldn't get it right anyway because I have to be like super focused sometimes on this stuff because my brain will wander on text stuff and math stuff, which is why handy tools like this exist. So check this out. So let's say I can make some garbage up and the AI will know like, oh, this is how this has kind of been done by other coders in the past. So let's say make a function to cause the TV to start talking. It's a character who uses the character sheets database component, okay? It will have an audio source which we may need to add to the TV. Okay, it's not word wrapping, so I'm going to hit Control Z or Alt Z. It's obnoxious that every Visual Studio Code doesn't save your word wrapping settings. Every single time you open thing, you have to press Alt Z. Tiny price to pay as long as you have a short key. So we need to add it to the, and it says prefab. Yes, tab, prefab. All right, now let's see if I hit enter, it'll try to make sense of what I just wrote, even though I don't even know how that would look. See the little circle at the bottom right, and there we go. It's starting. Now it just made this. Okay, public void start talking. Okay, so that's the name of the function that it's going to use, the method or whatever. Get the character sheet. Okay, so there we go, and hit tab, and now it created all that for me. So it got the character sheets. This doesn't exist right now, by the way. There's no such thing as character sheets as a component in my game. Yeah, get the character sheets component, which doesn't exist, but it's going to because, because if that's what I need, then that's what I need, and I can make that, and I will make that for my characters later on. Get the audio source component, get the component, yep. Set the clip on that audio source component to whatever its clip should be from the character sheets, and this doesn't totally, it wouldn't really work right now because I'd still have to do more coding and make it work. But let's see. Now, update the UI text dialog display. I'm not even going to tell it to do what. It already knows. To show the character's name and first line of dialogue. Okay. And then hopefully it'll get out of this. Oh, there we go. And now it's making the code for me. Tab, tab, tab. Okay. And then I go, got to do the rest too. Here we go. Sometimes it gets trapped in a weird loop. It's not perfect. It's built upon GPT-3, which is the same as like AI Dungeon and stuff. So sometimes it doesn't fully understand, but it kind of understands what you're going for based on what's here in this script, and I think in your other scripts, which is pretty cool. Because it kind of reads. It's like $10 a month, and you hook it into Visual Studio Code once that's set up. It wasn't too difficult, but now I can just like play it like a piano, which is amazing, and I can do things I was never able to do before. So this is a function. Like this is, yeah, so this is the start if I were actually trying to do that. But you still got to understand how variables work and how functions work just generally, because then like it's helped with troubleshooting and to go like, hold on, that's not right. This is the audio clip isn't stored in the character sheets, it's stored in the audio database. So that should be in the audio database, blah, blah, blah. So the point is you can make stuff, you can create. Let's see if it does anything if I do this. If I say, now make the function to end the conversation with the TV character. That is that is definitely real. All right, and there we go. Now it's creating a function called nTalking. There we go. It's going to stop the audio source. It's going to what? It's going to set the dialog display to whatever the text message, or the it's going to get the component of the text mesh UI. We can tweak this and make this actually a workable thing. But yeah, this is how I've been coding my game now. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's so freaking cool. So that's just an example. And here's the actual radio object that I showed you earlier going through the frequencies. I'm sure there are more efficient ways to do this. Um, but yeah, I wrote this in 2 days using the tools that I've shown you. So wrote is questionable, more like curated, but I am doing some bug testing and some, like I understand the concepts. It just knows the syntax. It's like you're trying to speak another language, a computer language, and now you just have a free translator over your shoulder. Well, $10 a month. Okay, I'll take it. Um, and he's like, here's how you want to say that if you want the idea to come across. It's like, okay, here you go. All right, cool. So yeah, so you got your start function, the initializing, setting up the radio, and it checks for all of its components and grabs them, and then like once per frame, it checked if the powered or broken state turns on, then it'll change the power state, and then like normally once you click on it or whatever, that comes from an object manager script, which has all of the new components I'm creating for objects, the interactable objects, which I'm going to show you in a second in my interactable objects spreadsheet that I'm working on, working down the list. And so it sends that to whichever one it has, and then it checks for the object you clicked, and it's like, is it powered, and did you touch the volume knob? Okay, then send the adjust volume function and do the adjust volume, and that's round down here. Okay, so you're gonna, if it checks the which key, did you play primary interaction or secondary, because that'll be up or down on the volume thing, and you're gonna change the float, the value of the volume, and it's gonna set the audio clip to do that, and it's so cool. Adjusting the frequency, to change the audio clip depending on which frequency you have set up. And then you have the, God, this is 500 lines of code, and I did it in 2 days when I couldn't code a week ago. And it works because I know how to bug test it, because it's teaching me how to bug test itself, It's so cool. And of course I am using the, going online and checking for like, what is this error and stuff. And luckily there's a whole big internet, of people who've answered these questions, about a lot of like, what does this function mean? Or, what is this call or whatever the crap, and that's really cool. So I'm not just using the OpenAI Codex in Visual Studio Code. Anytime I run into a problem that I don't understand, I check the Unity documentation and stuff, but I'm able to like connect those things now, to make those connections now, whereas before I would just be lost. Like in 2014 I started trying to code. I discovered Unity from the War for the Overworld video game, which is like a Dungeon Keeper style game that I'd been keeping track of since like 2008, but they made a demo in Unity in like 2013, 2014, and it said made in Unity, and I was like, what is Unity? And so I checked Unity and I was like, this looks cool. So I started trying to use it because I had tried other things before, RPG Maker, even Game Studio A8, because there was a game called SuperCon on it, and I was like, that looks like a game I would like to make. But I never really clicked, and I tried Unity, and I tried to learn C#, but I just couldn't get my head around it. But now Visual Studio Code, with all these cool colors, like that kind of tell you what everything is, and the OpenAI Codex finally bridged that gap, so that now I don't need visual scripting. I can just script. And I own these scripts and I can share them, and it's legal to do so because I created them. I mean, as legal as any AI generated stuff is, and there may be ethical issues later on, since it's kind of like learning from the rest of the internet how to create images based on what has existed before, and there are some ethical issues around that. I'm not getting into all that here. It's legal right now, and it's an amazing tool, and I think the world would be lesser without it. It allows the technique to get out of the way of the vision, which for me is great, especially since I ain't rich enough to be hiring 1,000 artists or 1,000 coders, to make this stuff for me. I got to do it all on my own. So if I want to get it done within a human lifetime, these AI tools are really handy, and I think it's amazing. I also think you can't own a style, um, morally, legally in some cases you can copyright or trademark like color palettes, like in very specific applications. But anyway, okay. So that's an example of how the scripting, how I'm doing scripting, C# scripting in Unity now using OpenAI Codex, which is cool as business. Um, so now I'm going to show you my asset data, or my database that I'm working through, of items. Here they are. Whoop. And here's what we're working through. You can see the ones that are done over here and the ones that are not. There's about 180 of them, but these are all interactable objects. You're gonna be able to interact within the world, and just being able to do that, even if it doesn't tie into any quests, even if it doesn't tie into anything, just being able to do that, I think adds so much to a world. It instantly sells me on a world. More than the prettiest Witcher 3 hut that's made of plastic that you can't interact with anything in does. It's like it was like Witcher 3 is frustrating to me as a game because it looks amazing, but I'm like, Ultima 6 was more interactable than this in 1990. What's the deal? What's going on here? Like, why did the game industry forget that immersion, like how you do like immersion and create systems that you know? So I have mad respect for like Warren Spector and the people who do Deus Ex when they talk about creating problems, not puzzles. And the way if you have a problem, what you do is create a world of systems around it, and then just say, here's your problem, and then unleash the player in it, and then the player can solve it using the systems of the world, gravity, climbing, weight of objects. If things have Breath of the Wild does the same thing. It's a systemic style game, where you just have electricity. That's just a feature of the world. So if you know what it does, how it interacts, you can solve an infinite number of emergent problems using that tool that just exists. But it's not necessarily a tool that you have in your inventory. It's a tool as a world concept. Like physics is a tool in an immersive game like that. I'm not going too hard into physics just because that's a little above my skill level, just like I'm not going into voxel terrain like Minecraft because it's a little above my skill level. It would be cool to tackle those eventually. But for now, I definitely can make interactable set pieces and props that are interactable, and that the player can mess with. If there's a telescope, you should be able to look through it. If there's a sink, you should be able to turn it on and fill it up and plug it with water and wash things in it. Like you could have all kinds of quests that emerge from the player's desires just from that. Let's say you're out exploring somewhere and you find some dirty dish somewhere, and it has the property of being dirty. And it's all it has to do is have the property of being dirty, and now all of a sudden I know a sink nearby. I'm going to go wash this. And why would you want to wash it? I don't know. What is the pattern on it? The China pattern on it. Maybe I want to put it on a shelf in my base and store it, maybe. And that's just a memento of the time I went to this region, and that wasn't a quest that the game created. That was a quest you created, and those, I think those are like often more compelling than the ones that like, here's your checklist, here, do all these things. It's like you just hold it up to the player. It's like, here, now do these things, please. This is your content that you have been given with your purchase, of this game. It's like, just leave me alone. That's why I want to make a video at some point called Why I'm Sick of Good Game Design. Because it's like, I don't want things to be balanced. I don't want them to be polished. I want things to be kind of terrible and just thrown out there and just experimental and just free, which is why another game I want to talk about sometime is the Coin game, which is an early access Steam game, which is just about being in an arcade. And I got it because I wanted to do the coin thing where you pour the coins in and they stack up, and then there's a thing that pushes them, and if they push off, you get, off the ledge, you get them or whatever. I thought that was such a cool idea, and that's how I found the game. But then once I got into the game, I left the arcade and there was a world, and I was like, what is this? So then I just started walking across the world, and it was early access. They've added more stuff to it since then. And I was just walking. It's like, I'm supposed to be in this arcade. That the game is being in this arcade, playing all these arcade games and getting tickets and getting prizes. But I was like, no, I just want to walk. So I just left out the door. I missed the fact that there was a bus stop where you can actually pay and be transported around. I think it's an island. So I'm just walking through the wilderness for 25 real minutes, and that to me was more nourishing than 1,000 tick boxed quests. Just being able to just walk in a world, just walk, just go. And that's why that's core to my game. My game world loops in both directions. Well, three, but that's a whole other story. Um, so you can just walk, and it's like, oh, what are you trying to accomplish? I, I'm just walking. Just leave me alone. I'm walking. I want to walk, you know, and I just want to walk. It's like, what's out there? Who knows? Is it good? Probably not. Even in the coin game, it was early access. A lot of the features weren't built out. So I walked, and then there was nothing really exciting. But like there was like a house you could live in, and there was like a theme park that on the side of the road that wasn't ready yet or something. Um, but again, it's the journey, not the destination. And like making something that's satisfying at the end point of those things, that's a whole other challenge. But I'm in the process of trying to make that walk enjoyable, like worthwhile, nourishing in a way that a lot of noisy media today is not nourishing. It's like a lot of games and movies and stuff. It's like they're designed to keep your brain scrambled, but I just want to sit down and hear the birds and look up at the sky. And that's the AOCT, which I guess I can go ahead and talk about right now. All of these help build out that world and just make it a world you can sit down in. Which is why you got to be able to sit in chairs and lie down in beds, like, and just go to sleep. And like, this is why I say immersion before gameplay. Immersion before gameplay. Like, I want the world to exist before I can care about saving it. Um, and so this is the AOCT. This is my philosophy that kind of governs a lot of how I'm working on things, for my games, for my projects, for Project Ultra Deep, for Age of Singularity, for NotSSgame, for SP, for all of the others that are listed on my website, the side projects. It's like I'm trying to build a system of a database of assets and systems that I can just drop into any scenario, and just play them and experience them and have other people be able to do the same thing. So my game is I'm not just trying to make it a game, but it's also a relaxation tool. You can just pop in and just sit there and look at the stars and look at the sky. So we're going to go through it. AOCT. It's really simple. And I'm not talking about the progressive politician from, was it New York's 14th congressional district? I'm not talking about AOC. I'm talking about AOCT, which is ambient immersion. You should be able to hear the rain. You should be able to just sit down and see the NPCs going about their schedules, their daily lives, just like, oh, look, there's the mailman, that was in Majora's Mask. That was 1999. They made that shit in 8 months. Why can't we do that anymore? Of course we can. Just sit down. There's the mailman. He put a letter in the box. Wait, there's a little dude with blue hair and wearing like a Pikachu mask. He came out. Like I just saw that. After the mailman left the letter in that box, he came out from like the laundry pool area and he walked down the stairs and he got that letter out and he went home. What's that about? Who's that kid? Who is that? He won't talk to me if I try to talk to him. But there's where he lives. I'm gonna stake out that laundry pool area and see what happens for the next 3 days. That's what you gotta be able to do, man. This is why I think that like things like horror games, slow-paced, very chill, very ambiance-driven horror games, and detective games and mystery games are especially suited to immersive experiences because it's all about needle in a haystack, which is haystacking, which is another thing that I do, which is like the world is too big for you to guess the right answer. They're like the phone book has too many phone numbers for you to guess which one you're supposed to call. But it's right there. It's all right there if you know what you're doing. The Outer Wilds is a game that does this too, in terms of like everything is right there for you. If you know what to do, it's right there. But you don't know what to do. You have to discover that world, which is why I think out the Outer Worlds, no, the Outer Wilds, small indie game. The Outer Wilds is like a masterpiece of game mechanic incentive structure design because it's purely intuitive. Everything's right there. It doesn't ever tell you what to do. But you feel compelled to do these things, to explore this stuff. And then you learn everything. And all the answers are right in front of you the whole time if you knew where to look, but you didn't. You had to learn the world to have that adventure. And that's what I want too. It's like all the answers are all right there. In a detective game that's good, I think, but there's so many options that you have to figure it out or you're not going to guess right. That's like having a needle in a haystack. The answer is a needle in the haystack, but that's called haystacking. So that's what I'm doing partially with this media stuff as well, with radio shows, with TV shows, with magazines, with novels, with vinyl records in my game. These are just the kind of the baseline of hey, the haystacks, where there are answers to all your quests and stuff. They're kind of sprinkled in there, but you're not going to guess them. Like, I mean, it's like having a lock code with like 5 digits. It's like, and the boss and the final boss right behind it at the beginning of the game. It's like you could guess it. It's possible, but I mean, probably not going to. But the option is there. If you want to sit there and brute force those 5 digits, the option is there. And that's kind of how the freedom that I want in my game. The option is always there. Um, so ambient immersion. The world just exists. You can sit in a chair and look up at the sky in first person. Like that's core, I think. Any game where you can't sit in chairs drives me nuts because it's so easy to program. Like it's you disable the player the player movement script. All right, you put the camera at a place, and there you go. You can sit in a chair. You press the escape button to get out of it or something. Come on, come on. You should be able to sit on a bed. You should be able to lie down in a bed. Even if you can't sleep, even if the game doesn't have that kind of passage of time or whatever, you should be able to lie down and just chill. So that's ambient immersion. And then when you're doing that, you can hear the soundscape of the environment, the rain hitting the gutters on the outside or the window, and all this stuff, the fireplace crackling, the old-timey radio sitting in the corner of the room, playing old-timey public domain songs. That's cool. That's step one to me of having a game that feels nourishing and enriching to me. Then you have open exploration. You can have several goals, some given by the game and some that you create from your own desires, and you can explore them in any order you choose. Metroidvanias are really good at this. Resident Evil is kind of a Metroidvania as well because you have the hub area and then you have the various areas that branch off. And every time you get a key to that mansion, that spooky mansion that you're in Resident Evil, it opens about 4 doors. 2 sometimes, 4, 5 sometimes. Go explore. Which ones do you want to go to first? So it's still guided. It's still technically linear, but within that scope, it's open. You give the player choices. It's like 1 key per door, 1 key per door. And that's another thing that the very original Legend of Zelda got right for the Nintendo, for the NES. Was it 1986? That none of the others have gotten right. Is that it's that the gray key, the key in a dungeon, the small key is a symbol of fractal openness in game design, where because like in the world is open outside, the overworld is open. That's pretty standard. We have open world games now, but once you get into a dungeon, that within its own scope needs also to be open. Um, and a small key, those gray keys in the original Legend of Zelda, what were they? It wasn't, oh look, a locked door. I did a puzzle. Oh, here's the key for it. Boom, let's go. No, that's later Zelda games where it's like it's making this linear game. It's where you're no. The very first Zelda game, that gray key, you could use that on any locked door you find that's small, a small door key, right? And you can use it in any dungeon you find. And you can buy those keys from a shop in case you need some. That's freedom in dungeon design. Um, it's just open. It's fractally open. The overworld is open, and then within the overworld, there are places you can go into, and then you go into that place, and then that place also is open. Okay, uh, that's the way to do it. Like those small keys, that's huge. You got to have that open exploration, not just in the overworld, but also within the interior areas of the game. And having small keys like that is huge. Um, so that's the O in AOC. T. And then C is cozy autonomy. And this is just kind of me being redundant. You want to be able to sit in a chair and read a book or listen to the radio in your own space, ideally. And that's the key. Is like you should be able to have your own base of operations in the game that you can call home. Maybe you can upgrade it. Maybe you can't. Maybe it's just a place you chill between missions. Maybe it's basically a glorified menu screen. I love those. I love those. I think it's so cool. There are a lot of games that I love because they have a place like that. Viscera Cleanup Detail. It's a game on Steam where you're basically a janitor who has to go in and clean up for hours. Has to go in and clean up the gory aftermath of, an alien horror movie, or or a Friday the 13th movie or whatever. So you're just sweeping and mopping and cleaning up guts and stuff, and it takes like 3 hours per level. It's one of those simulator games that's very common now. That's a cool experience to have a few times. It's very relaxing for a lot of people. What I love is after each mission, you go back to your office, and it's like this little cramped little industrial space. Um, and from there you can choose your missions and stuff. But there's also like a locked door in the corner, and it's a little weird. And you can find certain items in the missions that actually help you like explore your own office more and clean it up more. And you can clean it up too. And like that's so cool. Having these safe spaces, these rooms, whether it's not really a threat or a goal, but it kind of shows you more about the character and about the world. I think that's really cool. Um, Another game that does it is Soldier of Fortune for PC. My friend had it on PC around the time of Half-Life, would have been like 98, 99. Um, and the thing that blew my mind was how you could, like shoot people in the head and their brains would explode and their head would bust in half. At the time, like like I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. That's so detailed and gory and stuff. But the other thing that was really interesting is how you have a base between missions, and it's like a comic shop or something. I need to play that game again. But like then you open up the door and then you go back and there's like missions or weapons or whatever, but it's all like it's a place between missions. You need that. That's what the cozy autonomy is about. You need to have your place between missions where you can sit there and relax and think about what your next thing is and plan things out. In Phasmophobia, which I've been playing a lot recently with my friend, you can sit in the van. You're outside a haunted house and you have your ghost equipment van, and you can sit in there and watch your camera feeds, and you're safe. But you can like set up your camera feeds and your instrumentation inside the house to find the ghosts. You can just sit out in your van, and between missions, there's actually like a warehouse that you're in, with some little Easter eggs on there as well. That's so cool. I love that. Hitman 2. That's right. There was like a monastery or something between the original Hitman 2. There's like a monastery between your missions where like all of your weapons were stored. Um, like in like a shack or something, and there are monks around or whatever. And it's again, it's not a mission. It's just a place between missions. A place between missions. That's what cozy autonomy is about. You need to be able to have a place to call your own, where you can regroup and figure out your stuff and work out from there. Um, so all these three things work together. Like you need to have your own space in a game, where you can relax and make your plans and stuff, and maybe upgrade it and kind of like decorate it and show your character and like what you've kind of accomplished. Like put real trophies on the wall, not like PSN or Xbox achievement things that pop them in the corner. Real 3D objects like that maybe you found during a mission or were given or something by a character. You should be able to display those. You know, and then, like, while you're there, you should be able to be immersed and just sit down and read a book in a chair. And there are plenty of public domain books too. That's one of the media players that I'm working on in my game, is where you can just dump old books, Grimm's fairy tales or whatever, into folders, and you just sit in the game and read them for hours if you want to, or never do this stuff. That's the thing. It's like this isn't even the game. This is just the layer underneath the game that is the foundation, which is why I say immersion before gameplay. Gameplay comes later, and it's going to be pretty cool too. But first, you got to have the world before you can make gameplay in it. And I consider this stuff essential parts of the world. Ever since I was convinced by Ultima 6 in 1990 that you could just walk into a house and just like live there if you wanted to. Kill the inhabitant, or just say they're your roommate and move the furniture around, and block people in, like block in a guy from his house so he can't get to his armory shop in the middle of the day, so you can go in there and rob it, because he's blocked in his house. I think that's, I mean, that's cool. And then, from there you can figure out where you're going to explore next, and you can explore an open world. And then the fourth part of this, which is kind of recent, is tourism. Like, you don't need to be given quests when you go on a vacation, yet it's still nourishing and enriching. Why? And can we do this for video game experiences? I think we can. Um, and this is why the holodeck on Star Trek The Next Generation and Star Trek Voyager, and I haven't seen a lot of Deep Space Nine, but it's probably in there too. But that's why the holodeck is like kind of like the pinnacle in my view of what a video game can be, because it's an interactive or a passive narrative, uh, internal driven, like character player driven experience that increases empathy and understanding and all these things that we should want stories to be. Um, and we can do most of that stuff right now. Um, at least it's some rudimentary form, but most like AAA publishers that they just don't. They just don't bother, and it's just makes games feel much more less nourishing than they could be, I think. Um, so yeah, the tourism aspect. It's like you need to be able to like just think about like go to your game, but your place in your game world, and sit there and say, what would I be doing, and why would I want to be here if there was no quest? Okay. And let's say I had a weekend or a week and I had to stay here. How quickly would I get bored and want to leave? Um, and would I feel like I'm rejuvenating and being nourished by this place, just like you do on a vacation, hopefully? Um, and that helps you see like I need to make this a place that exists for its own sake, rather than just as like a waypoint in some quest somewhere, you know. Um, but that's basically it, and like all of these things tie into that. It's like you need a place to call your own when you go on a vacation, where you can store your souvenirs and stuff and make your plans. And you need to be able to relax in an immersive way and just hear the rain and read a book if you want, or listen to the radio or dance with somebody. um, and you need to be able to explore the town, or the resort, or wherever your uncle's cabin, wherever you're vacationing. You need to be able to explore the area and immerse yourself in it, and those are all quests you create for yourself if you want to or not. You know, that's the tourism aspect. Just to hammer home that idea that it's like places and objects and chairs and all that stuff in video games should exist for their own purposes, not just to serve a bigger quest, like I said. So that's the AOCT. That's kind of the core of my game design philosophy that I'm building everything around. Um, Maybe I'll make this little clip into a video at some point on its own. Um, but yeah, that's it's just I think it's core. Like I think it's core to making an immersive experience, and it makes me cringe and it bums me out that like so many. It's like video game design plateaued like around the GameCube era, and like it's just kind of like I saw the trajectory, from Atari, which is like the cool older kids, slightly older than me, had Ataris, and then I had a Nintendo. That was so cool. Super Nintendo was like Nintendo, but like prettier and like more animations and colorful graphics. And then you go to the Nintendo 64, and it's like, oh my God, it's 3D, like Mario World. You just start, or Mario 64, you just start, and you're just in this world. You look around, you look up at the sky in first person. That's the thing. That's one of those things for me. Um, and that's amazing. And then you go to GameCube, and it's like, oh, it's like the Nintendo 64, but better frame rates and better graphics. And then after the GameCube, it's like, wow, there's some bloom, and it's loud now. It's like, I don't know, I don't, but like after like that kind of happened, like the next game that really blew my mind was Minecraft in 2012 October, version 3.2, I think, where I bought it, I'm just like in the hut, and I didn't know anything about the game really, but I was like, oh cool, I can dig. That's crazy. I can't really do that in a lot of games. Then I dug some more, and I'm like, how deep can I dig? And I dug all the way down to bedrock with my fist. Made a staircase out of stone with my fist, and I just did it. Again, took a while because I didn't know you could make tools in Minecraft to like just do this instantly. But I was just like, what are the limits of this thing? I can just go. Like I can just explore. Like that was the last time for in a game where I was like my mind was actually blown. Where I was like, oh my God, the possibilities are different now. You know. Um, but again, like that was that again, like you're talking about GameCube to that is already 10 years, and now from that to now is already like, it's just we're just hitting limits, I think, in terms of what technology can do in terms of artificial intelligence. I think the next level of this is going to be AI Dungeon, except real time with 3D graphics that are generated in real time, which is basically a holodeck experience on a screen, or in VR. Where it's the characters in the world are dynamically reacting to you. But again, like to be able to do all of that in real time, 60 frames a second, we're not there yet. AI Dungeon is just text, and it takes what, 10, 15 seconds to generate a new text thing, and it's not super coherent like yet in terms of like understanding the narrative, the quest and all that stuff that's happening. It's getting better, but again, it's like we're a ways away from the actual holodeck experience. But there are ways we can move sideways in terms of immersion that we can explore now, and that's what I want to do. Like I can't make the AI like actually respond to your voice in a dynamic way. I don't have those tools yet. I'm not. I watch a lot of 2-minute papers, yeah, and I'm not totally sure if those tools exist in a really good form yet for real-time gameplay. Um, but I can let you sit in a chair. Like I can let you sit in a chair and read a book and look up at the sky and see the sun pass over as the evening comes and the TV station changes. I can do that. We can do that. Why aren't we at least doing that? You know, I can make it so you can lock your door, or if you lose your lock, like just take the hinges off the door, and I can do that. I can make it so that the game knows the door is made of wood. So if you try really hard, you can burn it and make a hole and kick it through and get through the locked door. I can do that. We can do that. So I'm doing that. Um, there's a material system, whether it's a character or a building, or any of this stuff, or an object. It's all made of something, and it's just a simple check to say this object with this name. Check the materials database for this object and see what it's made of. Oh, it's metal. Okay, cool. What does metal mean? That means I can melt it down. It means it conducts electricity. It means it's really heavy. Um, it means it can be shiny too. Like there are a few things like, and so once the game knows that, and that's just a text file. Once the game knows that, then you can script out, okay, well, what can you use shiny things for? Well, you can signal to people far away with a shiny thing. You know, you can make a mirror out of a shiny thing. It's these are all doable things, and I am frustrated a lot by a lack of progression in game design, especially from these big AAA companies that like I know they got the resources. So I'm doing it on my own because I have to, because we can now, thanks to all of these amazing tools that are now available, thanks to AI and stuff. So that's the AOCT. That's my philosophy about immersive stuff. And making a game world immersive and an interactive experience immersive. So that's cool. Now I'm going to show you some of the AI artwork that I've been working on and concepting for my game using Stable Diffusion. Here we go. So this is well, it's called it's let's see, how do I say this? The cornstalk forest. I mean, you got to have a forest of giant cornstalks, and I'm still not quite getting what I want. I got to prompt engineer and like change the text a little bit to figure out exactly what I'm getting. But these are all, you know, so it's like saying a third person view of Link from Ocarina of Time, which is funny because he always looks like Link or Zelda from Breath of the Wild. Um, Exploring a giant cornstalk forest, and you got all these, and it's amazing. Um, and you can just go through for 100 years. And like, each one of these is like just a place you could go, and yeah, that AOCT thing really comes through because the first thing you see here is not like, oh, what quests could I have here? What problems could I solve here? At least for the first thing I see is like, oh, cool, I could sit over there and read a book. I could listen to those birds, like on that tree. Like I could watch the sun pass over. I could hear the wind. Oh, maybe it's going to rain in the afternoon. Oh my goodness, I could make a little hut shelter and sit under that and read. I could make a little campfire and cook some mushrooms that I found. Why not? Why not? That's the it's yeah. I don't One of the biggest disservices about video games is the term video game because they're really interactive software experiences. Um, but that's not quite as catchy as video game. But the problem when you have the word game is that a game has a fail state, it has a success state, and it has a goal, and that's the point. Um, but I don't want to make a game that's like per se. I want to make an experience, and the game part, the goals can be a part of an experience, just like they can be a part of going on vacation somewhere, going on holiday somewhere. But that's not the only thing that has to happen. The world is enough sometimes, and that's the foundation. So yeah, so that's cool as crap right there. I like that. I mean, like, each one of these could be a story. And who's this little dude? Who's this little guy? I mean, is this a woman with long hair, or is this like a Fraggle with like stumpy legs sticking out his head? Like I don't know. Now I'm thinking about it. That's so cool. And where is he going? Is he rushing? Is it tea time inside this little like gnome house? Like, does he have to tell like them that he got engaged to his girlfriend or boyfriend? Like is he excited about this? Like what is this place? Where is this? Is this a castle over here? Who lives there? And this is all AI generated, but your mind goes wild with the inspiration. Not to mention these are textures I can just drop into Blender and just use on objects if I wanted to. You know, and as soon as we have like really good, I try to look into it, but as soon as we have really good like image to 3D game ready scene, oh my God, it's totally on like Donkey Kong because I can just drop this in to Blender and go like, here, make this a 3D game world, and be like, okay. Then you're only a couple of steps over from chaining all these tools together to where you say, I want to play a game. You type it up. I want to play a game where I am exploring a forest and I am a gnome. And then it generates like, okay, well, here's the gnome characters images. Here's the world character images. Here's how the door looks on his hut. All right. And then you put those in a folder and you say, okay, they're labeled what they are. Here, Blender, generate that scene, that 3D model, Okay, boom. And you have the 3D model. And then, like with the AI coding that we're doing right now, you can say, "Oh, this is a door. Okay, make a script called Gnome Door." Unity using Visual Studio Code and OpenAI Codex. Like make and give it the typical things a door would have: a lock, hinges, an open position, a closed position, a sound effect that plays when you open or close it. If it has a lock, make the key for it too, and throw that somewhere in the world in a logical place. I mean, well, it's a house, so obviously the key should be somewhere in the house or on the, you've linked to the whoever the owner character is. So just add that into their inventory. Like you're only a couple of steps away from just being able to automate this whole thing, which is cool. And you just get to have nursing experiences, and you don't have to worry again about technique. And you can share them. That's part of the thing too. So there's another one. Look at that, it's just wonderful. And that's corn. It's like I call it corn grass. I just made that up about 2 seconds ago. Um, and it pops sometimes when you step on it. Why not? It goes, and you can eat it, of course. And sometimes it's sweet, and sometimes it's crunchy, and and a long time ago, people used to hollow those out and use them for bowls and stuff. And there was a big drought that happened for like it was like a 35-year drought, and so the natives in the area like they actually hollowed out a bunch of these little corn grass husks, and they lined them up. And so they're able to like have it rain, and it stored so much water. There was like a giant, it's like a field of cups of water basically made out of these corn stalk things. Um, I just made that up. Like that's BS. I just made all that up. But now it's cool. That could totally go in the game. Who knows? You could just like you could find the ruins of that place. So you're exploring and you just see like these rows of like corn husks, or maybe the corn has withered away or something. So you just see like the scaffolding for it that's still remaining, and it's like, wow, what was this for? And you could explore and discover that. Like yeah, there's so many possibilities. There's another one. I mean, I say there's another one like it's a shocker, but like these are just, it takes about 15 seconds to generate each one of these images. Um, it's kind of insane using stable diffusion. I have the GRisk version GRisk UI. It's really simple. I'd like to upgrade to something that has in painting and out painting and all that stuff, and can use a starter image like Midjourney can, and like uh, Disco Diffusion and stuff can on Latitude's site. Um, but I just got to look more into it. But yeah, I mean, you could go on forever. I just take the prompt and I say do this 45 times, and then I go off and eat a meal and come back, and so it's like, here you go, sir. Here's all your stuff that you requested. And it's like, okay, look at this. It's like a cave. It's like a cornstalk cave. Why not? Why not? It's your game. Do it, whatever, dude. Like, and again, like a lot of the textures come pre-built for you. Like it's really simplistic. PS1 or Nintendo 64, or, borderline GameCube like textures that you could, get out of something like this. Although you could get really high quality textures depending on if you prompt just for a texture. Do you type up, you know, grass blade scan lying flat, you know, knolling, which is like when things are lined up in a line. You just get like 20 grass blades, and then just hit make 50 of these. Boom, done. You're gonna find a few you like. It's awesome. And then once you have like starter images where you could paint it and have a starter image, you're gonna get much closer, much faster to what you like. Look how kind of creepy this is. I guess it's corn, something about corn, but it almost looks like spidery, almost looks a little spooky. But it's kind of cool because like I like that kind of category jamming stuff where it's like the game is a little spooky, but I don't want you to know why it's spooky. I don't want you to be like, oh, they're just making spider legs since humans are hardwired to think spider legs are creepy. Um, I want it to be like this where it's like, do they mean for that to be a little weird and creepy, or is that no? It's just the natural environment, but I still feel a little uneasy. But okay, whatever, you know. Um, but yeah, gosh, you can go on forever. So this is just the cornstalk forest. Look at that. That's so cool. These big roots, these big trees, almost like banyan trees, like those big, like elephant tree things in like the jungle. Really awesome. So cool. But I could go over this stuff forever. So that's an example of the landscaping. That's just landscapes, but I'm working on all kinds of stuff. And here's some characters. So this is Danny. He's one of the characters. He's your best bud in the game when you start out. And yeah, he's cool. He dressed like a mad scientist. And then there's your friend Allie. She dresses as a witch. And then there's another girl. She's a detective girl that you could meet and who could team up with you. Um, and like you could mix and match. Let's see. Like do you want a denim sweater? Do you want the plaid? You could just go on forever. And then here's the news crew. Like just mix and match. And here's one of the detective guys. He has his blue leather like trench coat, which is cool as crap. He has a high top fade, like a haircut, like Kid and Play. And it's really cool. Yeah, and there's more of the detective girl and more of him, and there's a scientist guy, and then like the waitresses from like the New Orleans Mardi Gras like region of town. You got the swamp detectives. Um, the scuba lady who's studying the ocean life and stuff. And you just got a bunch of other crap. It just goes on forever. It's funny you can see like biases sometimes or whatever. For this, I just typed criminal, and it's like okay, but it's like it's like there are biases sometimes like in terms of like AI, and they're like trying to work on mitigating all of those. In this case, it's like it's almost like it was trying not to be biased. It's like here's a white guy who's bald and has a goatee, and here's a black guy who's bald and has a goatee. If you want a criminal, he's gonna be bald and have a goatee and be kind of gaunt, kind of thin. It's like, okay, dude. It's still a little, but I mean, you type criminal, it has to come up with something. But it's just interesting to type very vague things like that and see where the biases are or whatever. So apparently, criminals are bald guys with goatees. Okay, that's good to know. It's like, okay, but yeah, it just goes on and on and on. Like you could just like, and this is like half an afternoon worth. It's just the power of this stuff is like in terms of like concepting things you want. This didn't really get where I needed. I was like trying to do like an 18th century aristocrat guy, like Beauty and the Beast basically, but it just gave me a lion. Like it's like okay, but I can work on it more. Yeah, and there's oh yeah, there's Santa Claus chilling like with it. I guess his other buddy Santa Claus. Yeah, it's funny. I made that as a joke to show my mom the power of this tool. 'Cause, yeah, it's just funny. It's funny. Very late. See, and you can get eyes are a work in progress, but you can totally get photoreal portraiture and stuff. It's whatever style you want. Just say it. It's insane. Um, yeah. So those are character designs that I write the words for, and then the AI generates it. Stable diffusion. It's amazing. Get a really good video card on your computer, and you can do it too. The RTX 2060 Super that I have was $400 when it was new. Now I want to upgrade to like a $1,200 one, like a 3090 or something, so I can get higher resolution stuff. It's like before I never needed that kind of power, but like this is so cool, so handy to have this. Look at this. A woman in a dress made out of 1970s contact paper. It's basically like adhesive paper you put inside cabinets and stuff to show like your neighbors that you're like really fancy in 1970. Like underneath your silverware tray and stuff. Anyway, it's just kind of it's like okay, here's your dress, and it's like oh, okay, I didn't know what that would look like. It knew, and that's just one. I could do 50, and they'd all be different. Yeah. So let's see. So what are we going to talk about now? There are a couple of things left. So the this is OpenAI Codex. Um, I'm pretty sure this is the one that I get or whatever. It's like $10. I'm still technically in the trial period. After 60 days or whatever, then it's gonna be $10 a month. I'll gladly pay $10 a month. Look at all that concept art I just showed you. How much would it have cost to hire people to do that at that skill level, that fast? I'm like, oh my God, like yes, and I couldn't afford that, so it just allows me to do things I wouldn't be able to afford to do, which is really cool. So that's that. On my website, I've added for my side projects and stuff. I added my Project Ultra Deep page for my Dungeons and Dragons project that I'm working on. Um, it's really slow, and I also have the Age of Singularity project, these are the ones I've kind of hitting hard right now. But NotSSgame is my main one that I've been working on uh, the most hard. And then again, all of these scripts are going to be like a bundle that I can drop into any of these projects to just instantly supercharge the immersion and factor and everything. So yeah, Project Ultra Deep, and that's the city of Waterdeep. On the continent of Faerun, on the land of on the world of Toril, in the material plane of the Forgotten Realms, Dungeons and Dragons. It's so cool. And then there's, underneath it you have Undermountain, which it goes very, very deep. Um, and it's like it's one of the biggest, most classic mega dungeons ever. So there's just a little bit of me talking about that I've added to my page. And then, oh, I've added so much to this one. I don't think I've touched this. This might even be like, if I made my own game like Ultima 6: The False Prophet, but focused on players being immersed in the world, yeah, okay. So I don't have any pictures yet, but I do have props like that I've made. Um, I think one of the last videos I showed the prop registry, like the date, the blend file with all the props. So there's that. Um, and so what I've been working on now with the things that I've been showing you is the systems in my game. The interactable object system, but all of these are systems that are going to be in my game. The conversation system, the base building system. I don't know how much you're going to be able to build just because of draw calls and stuff, and I'm not that fancy yet in terms of making that performant. Even Fallout 4, like the base that I would build, it lags like crap on my good computer. So like, they can't do that right. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do that right. So I don't know how interactable the building of structures is going to be in my game at this point. But you're still going to have a base. You're going to have tree houses and stuff. But yeah, so these are all systems that I'm working on, just slowly chipping away, slowly building them out. The next thing I'm going to hit, now that I have the radio and the TV done, is the payphone. Because I want you to be able to call people, and it's the simplest way for me to get the expertise and foci system, focus like knowledge base systems working, where you can call a number, it checks the address registry and says who lives here, and then it checks their schedules to say are they present, and then you see ask which one you want to talk to, and then you say this, you grab from your database of your compendium of knowledge and facts and stuff, you grab things and ask them, tell me about jar of milk, and then based on that character's knowledge and knowledge base, they will tell you like, oh, white liquid, or they'll say, oh, milk, I don't like that, or they'll say, oh yes, milk. It looks like this was created in the Wilderness province, yeah, by one of the ranchers out there. It sells pretty well if you can find like the really premium milk, like stuff like that, based on how much they know about it. Why don't you have this? This is a big gripe I had against Breath of the Wild, and that's what gave me the idea. Because there's one of these quests where you got to find characters and they all have to have the last name. The last part of their name has to be Son, S-O-N. And you need to find like 4 of them or 3 or 4 of them, and they could be anywhere in the world. And it's really hard to do on your own, except by luck, because you can't ask people. But if you had a compendium of knowledge, a database of facts, you would just go in and you would say, okay, for this quest, here are the keywords that I can ask about. Sun. All right, grab that, equip that bubble, then you go up to characters and you say, Sun. And then they say, Sun? No, I don't know anybody named Sun. Because it's a quest item and not just like the word sun. It's like so it goes with knowledge relating to that quest. It's like they know you're asking about that quest. So like, oh, but maybe over in this other place there's someone named Sun I've heard of. Maybe like you should have been able to do that in Breath of the Wild. Just ask about things. You instantly never ever need to build a tutorial into your game ever again if you just give the player a database and the ability to ask anybody about anything. And it doesn't have to be in their face. It doesn't have to be like in the way of the players. It can just be there. As long as you say, hey, you can do this. All of a sudden, the player doesn't need you to hold their hand anymore because they can like take that initiative if they want to learn about anything. In my game, you can even equip pieces of your menu, like categories in your menu, and ask about that. Like I can ask like save menu, and if I ask the right person who knows about this stuff, like my buddy Danny or whatever, he can say, "Oh yeah, the save menu. That's how you can save your game, or save your progress if you want to be diegetic about it." It's like, "Oh, that's how we can keep track of our knowledge so that we can remember from night to night what's happening." Just make sure that you press the A button or use the interact button, or you can write it in an immersive way if you wanted to. I'm not too worried about that at this point. I just want to get the systems working. But yeah, you should be able to do that in every new game. And I got that idea from Breath of the Wild when I was like, why can't I just ask about this quest? I should be able to ask everybody anywhere. And it's so easy to make, like, once you have the system in place. And I think every game should have it. I think it'd be really cool. So, so I'm working on those systems in my game, and I'm working on the phone booth in my game. And maybe I'll make a little clip of that, showing that later, once I have that done, where you can call in people and ask them questions about things. So now I'm going to talk about the public domain stuff that's the music that I'm using in my game, and I first figured that from watching this on YouTube. This Nemo's Dreamscapes channel has these really cool, immersive, very AOCT like experiences where it's like 1949, watching TV with your nuclear family. Oh, sorry, there you go. Oldies playing in another room and it's raining, ASMR. And it's like hours and hours and hours long. I'm just going to play a little snippet. That's a really great channel. Go support them. It's like really cool for relaxing and also like for focusing on scripting and stuff. It's all like public domain music, and I'm going to keep talking over it just in case it's not true. They don't link the songs that they used, so it's hard for me to know for 100% sure. But I love this concept and I love the channel, and I think it's really great. And it's what really maybe prioritize getting the radio working, because it just adds so much to be able to just turn on the radio and listen to oldies or anything really. So then but they don't link what songs they use. So I had to go find this stuff, and every year there's a public domain. Since the Disney kibosh on things entering the public domain ended finally, now every year on January 1st, a new year of content enters the public domain, from music to movies to novels, everything, which is really freaking cool. Public domain means you can use it and nobody can cry about it because it's in the public domain. The whole point of copyright is to protect authors so that they can make a living off of their creative work, but not forever. They need to build a profit off of their own creative work. It incentivizes them to create it, but then it needs to go into the public domain so that everyone else can build upon it. There's like a study or something that like only like 2% of any copyrighted material stays commercially viable after like 52 years. Go watch the documentary Everything is a Remix. It's really cool. It talks about copyright. I agree that copyright needs to be shorter. I don't know. I'm not qualified to say what exact, maybe 25, 30 years, 45 years, maybe just the life of the author, but not the life of the author plus like the age of the universe times pi, like to the 17th, no, like, so every year more stuff is entering the public domain. It's really cool. It's very handy because you can remix this stuff and create cool stuff with it. Winnie the Pooh, the very first book, is now in the public domain. You want to put Winnie the Pooh in your game? I mean, be careful, because like the Disney design for Winnie the Pooh with the real red shirt, I think, or something, you have to look, but it may or may not be in the public domain, because that was created later. Just like if you wanted to do a Wizard of Oz movie, you could right now, because the book by Baum, Frank L. Baum, is that him? The book is in the public domain, but those ruby slippers are not in the public domain because that was like 1939 by like MGM Studios, right? Like for that movie. The ruby slippers are not in the book. So you put the ruby slippers in your version of Wizard of Oz, you're going to get in legal trouble. So you got to cross your T's and dot your I's. And it's called errors and omissions. It's like a process that anytime you're making a published work or any commercial thing, you really need to go through and check every piece to make sure it's all above board and legal. Or you could be liable. You know, you don't want to build your empire or your commercial or your business endeavors on top of liabilities. It's not a good idea. It's just like building it on sand. Maybe it'll never collapse. But why leave that to chance? You know, just do what's right and make sure you're clear on everything and legally able to use what you use, and every part of it too, not just you know like the book, for example, of Wizard of Oz, but like each visual that you use, make sure that it's part of the book and not from the movie that's still copyrighted. But yeah, every year, amazing stuff in public domain. All this stuff is now public domain. You can do whatever the heck you want to it. Nobody can cry about it. Their estate can't get mad. Nobody can sue you as long as it's from the book. That's really cool. But there's music too, and yeah, sound recordings. And so the thing is, like, I'm still trying to figure out the best places to find these things. But one of the cool places I found is this one, which is Internet Archive. I just searched. At the time, I did this a few days ago when I made that radio reel of songs for my radio and my game. And at the time, I wasn't sure yet which things were public domain, but I knew everything before 1922 was. Apparently it's 1926 now, which is amazing because that opens up so much more in terms of films and music and stuff, like as the talkies become a thing. So yeah, so searching 1922 and searching by 78 RPM audio. All these songs you can download right now. They're public domain, and it's cool as heck. So and you could put them in your game. You could remix them. You could make your own version. You could make it part of the score for your movie. It's amazing. So let's go with, yeah, Te amo. Te amo is Spanish for I love you, and they just say I love you. I'm sure they're gonna like say it all silly because it's 1922 and they have no idea. Um, so here it is. Yeah, it's cool. It's really cool. And a lot of these old songs are really good, but they're limited by the technology of the time. So if you redid them or remixed them or reimagined them in a modern way, they can be really cool. Like even this, like just the melody behind this. Imagine redoing that as background music for a region of your map, but like you do it like with the right instrumentation, then it could fit pretty much anywhere. It could fit like a neon synthwave nightclub, or it could fit like a countryside carnival, or it could fit just like a suburban neighborhood if you do the right instrumentation and stuff. And I use Fruity Loop Studio or FL Studio now, I think it's what it's called, to do that. And the crackling stuff, I drop it into one of these songs into DaVinci Resolve, which is also free, and I can then on the Fairlight tab, which is the audio remixing tab, I can just lower. I could show it, but I have to get all that set up. Maybe sometime I'll do that. But I just lower the high frequencies to get rid of the crackling, the artifacts from it just being an old record. Which is why the ones in my game sound a little muffled, which works for the radio thing that I'm doing. It would take a qualified sound mixer or whatever to really bring out the real quality audio out of these. And maybe it's not possible. Maybe they're too degraded. So maybe you would have to remix them or make your own version. But the source material's there and it's public domain, which is really, really cool. It allows for more creativity to happen now. So yeah, this is the website that I've been getting these songs off. I'm just like grabbing, just like, my goal is to just fill out the radio with public domain stuff and then later go in and replace it with custom stuff that I create, as desired, so that's relevant to the quest or the game or whatever, the game world, and add DJ voices, saying, oh, no, coming up next is Tomo, I Love You, by the Orchestrina Napolitana, Alfred Sibeli, or Cibeli, I don't know. and Gia Messina. I don't know. I feel like a radio station playing this stuff would have like kind of an NPR, like very chill kind of, uh, voice, but you could also be like, coming up next is the hit. I love you. It's whatever. But so that's that stuff. So I think that's pretty much all this cool stuff that I wanted to talk about in this video. Yeah, that's so cool. Let's go over what we talked about again. I showed the scripts that I was working on. There's the time. I modeled that in Blender. I'm so much better at this than I used to be, like modeling and texturing. It's so cool. And the time works, the radio works, the TV works. Where's the TV? Boop. And the TV. Boop. There's a TV. Works. I showed the scripting and OpenAI Codex stuff, which is really cool. Showed the all my interaction spots, sewer lids, liquid kegs that hold liquids, a sink, a coffee maker. Seeing their different categories. I didn't really go over too much of that, but I will as I develop these things. Media players, which is what I'm working on right now. I went over the TV guide that I'm working on to fill out the categories. I went over like the corn forest, like the developing areas using AI imagery and then character imagery using Stable Diffusion as well. Yeah, and then I went over, like some changes to my website, adding some project areas uh, and talking about the systems in my games, and then where I started getting, the knowledge of the public domain music that I could use, and then yeah, Public Domain Day happens every year, and it's a good place to get some of the music. So that's my current project update for NotSSgame primarily, but it also affects my other projects. Because the goal is for it to be one unified system, as I've said, that of assets that I can just drop in and create a foundation of immersion in all these cool things that I want to create, whether it's Age of Singularity, my Ultima 6 project, or Project Ultra Deep, my Dungeons and Dragons project. So that's it for now, I guess. Check out some of my other videos if you want to see. I do these updates kind of rarely, and I'm sure this is like 4 billion years long. Um, I think it says an hour and like 15 minutes, maybe something like that. Because I've had a couple different clips, so it doesn't tell the exact time in OBS right now. OBS, also free. Like, it's just, you can get so much like now because of the tools, because everybody's coming together and working to make really amazing software and tools to aid in the creativity of these kind of things that didn't exist even 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, even 1 year ago. The Stable Diffusion came out like a month ago. It's awesome. So yeah, I'm Westing Tyler, and this is a NotSSgame update, mainly, but it's about game development stuff, and that's basically it. So I'm gonna stop this now. Thank you for watching.